what we know as Afrobeats today first hit the scene, we just called it Nigerian music, African music. A decade from now, I see Afrobeats being, I think it will probably go beyond my imagination.
All right, thank you all for joining me today. I truly appreciate you being here. So first of all, I want to say thank you all to everyone that has truly supported my channel and has really contributed to the success of this channel. So thank you for being here. I am excited to talk about this particular topic. It is one of my favorite topics to talk about, Afrobeats. And I want to talk to you guys about the future of Afrobeats. This particular video was inspired by a few segments that I saw on YouTube around the future of Afrobeat. As a matter of fact, one particular YouTube channel, a large YouTube channel, had a segment where they had a panel to discuss the future of Afrobeat. And on this particular segment in this panel, they talked about how Afrobeat was a fad and why Afrobeat wouldn't be here in the next 5 years. So they talked about Nigeria's popularity, Nigerian artists, their popularity, how that is a fad and it wouldn't be here in the next 5 years. So talk about hater nation, right? Now, I want to tell you that that is not true. And I totally disagree with their conclusion as well as the analysis on that. And I, like many others who are experts on this, truly believe that Afrobeat is going to enjoy a long life cycle. I believe that Afrobeat is going to be here in the next 50, 60 to 70 years. We're going to see the dominance and the relevancy of Afrobeat way into the future. I'm not the only one that believes this. There are reputable institutions, that really also affirm this. For example, a few of those would be the AMA, the American Music Awards. Recently introduced a category for Afrobeats. Now, they wouldn't do that if they thought Afrobeat was a fad and something that wasn't going to be here for a long time, right? The Recording Academy, the Grammys, is also considering Afrobeat as a category. Now, they also would not be investing into Afrobeat music genre if they thought that Afrobeat was a fad or something that wouldn't be here for a long time. And then lastly, the MTV EMA Award, MTV Europe Music Award, would not also be considering Afrobeat as a category as well as featuring Afrobeat artists if they thought that this was a fad or something that was not going to be here for a long time. So a lot of expert and reputable institutions have looked at the success and the life cycle of Afrobeat and have projected that this will be here for a long time. Now, I want to talk to you guys about reasons why I believe that Afrobeat is going to maintain a 50, 60, 70 plus year dominance. As a matter of fact, it's going to outperform all of the black music genres that really preceded it. And I'm going to look at it from the 2010 time period and time era. And the reason why I'm using 2010 as a particular era to really sort of project out 50, 60, 70 plus years of Afrobeat's dominance is because this particular era is what I call the second golden era of Afrobeat, as also the era where Afrobeat was introduced to the world. It is when this is a period in time when Afrobeat really went global, went mainstream. This is when everyone outside of the shores of Africa learned about this particular music genre. This is where Afrobeat became the success and global phenomenon that we all know today. But it's certainly not when Afrobeat was started. It's certainly not also when Afrobeat became popular. Afrobeat became really popular and became a phenomenon back in Nigeria in the 90s, as well as in Africa. This is what I call the first golden years of Afrobeat. This is when Afrobeat really sort of utilized Fela, who was the founder of Afrobeat, utilized his flavor that really incorporated, that really had a lot of Yoruba, Fuji, funk type of all flavor, and really merged it into pop culture and hip hop culture. This is where we saw that whole, infusion of Afrobeat with pop culture really sort of took root in the 90s and really gave birth to the new wave of artists that we're seeing. I call them the 2010 artists that we know today. The Davido, Wizkid, Burna Boy, Kiss Daniel, Techno, P Square, and many others like that. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about the 2010 and 50 years projection into this. And I'm going to give you 3 factors that I believe is going to really help to keep Afrobeat relevant, to really also help with the expansion of Afrobeat into the future, well into the 50 years, 60 and 70 years from now, as well as really, increase the dominance of Nigerian culture as well as Nigerian artists all over the world. So first, we'll start with the population. Population growth is one of those factors. Now, when I mean population growth, I'm talking about Nigeria's population. Nigeria currently has a population of 211 million people. It is projected that Nigeria will double in size, as a matter of fact, by 2050. Statista made a projection that by 2050, Nigeria would have doubled to 401 million in population by 2050. Now, while that is great from a numbers and human capital, leveraging power perspective, it is very concerning to also many others who look at the current situation of Nigeria in terms of the economic situation of the country, in terms of poverty, the social and civil unrest that really plague the country. And so they find that to be a concern. So if Nigeria continues in the trajectory that it is right now, it's obviously going to be a major concern in terms of, living condition, wage, and poverty into way into the future. But nonetheless, the human capital leveraging power of Nigeria based on the population growth is going to help really propel Afrobeat and keep it relevant all over the world. Now, why do I say that? It's because this is going to have Nigerians represented in the diaspora. Nigerians are historically known as explorers. Of all the African countries, Nigerians are the ones that mostly travel around and really move around from place to place. Many people outside of the African continent are familiar with Nigeria. So Nigerians are known all over the place. Now, the reason why Nigerians move around is and are considered as explorer has a lot to do with their historical background. So a lot of the ethnic groups, a lot of the tribes that many of us are familiar with, the Igbos, Yorubas, the Hausas, many of which many people are familiar with, really sort of stemmed from a lot of the kingdoms that came or sort of moved around from centuries in the past. So we're talking about the Benin Empire. We're talking about the Yoruba Empire. We're talking about the Sokoto Caliphate. These ethnic groups and these people sort of moved around over the centuries and primarily make up the tribes that we know to be in Nigeria today. So their behavior historically have always been movers and settlers and people that just take chances and try to learn different culture. That's why you've seen Nigerians primarily really move around from their home country and live in different part of the world. Now that is a good thing because it's for Afrobeat, because as Nigerians are expanding in population, it's also going to expand their presence all over the world. So Nigerians in the diaspora are going to really keep Afrobeat at top of mind. Afrobeat today has really enjoyed a rapid success from 2010 because of this. The size of Nigeria and the presence of Nigerians in the diaspora has really played a major role in Nigeria's popularity and the expansion of Afrobeat as we know today. And so we have no reason to believe that would not continue all the way into the 2050, 2060, and 2070 into the future. So that's going to be a major factor. Now, I'm going to call out the United States here for a little bit because as the world is growing and as projections have been made for all these countries' growth, Nigeria's growth, there's also projection made for the United States. So while Nigeria will become third largest worldwide next to India and China, it is also going to surpass the United States in terms of population by 2060. The US currently right now, which is going to play a major role in Afrobeat's expansion. So the US was late in the adoption of Afrobeat, but nonetheless is going to play a major role into the future with the expansion and the relevancy of Afrobeat into the future. And the reason why that is because the US social media has been a huge player with Afrobeat expansion. And most of the social media platforms have primarily been developed in the United States. So that is going to play a huge role as well as the new third wave dimension of social interaction, which is going to be the metaverse. This application and this era is really going to spurn from the United States. And so US is going to play a major role. As a matter of fact, the US in terms of population is going to go from 300 million, which is what it is right now, to about 458 million. This is what Pew Research Center has projected the US population to be in 2050. A huge part of that makeup and that expansion or population growth will be as a result of Hispanic, Asian, and African origin. So the US makeup is going to be different from what it is right now. As a matter of fact, when there was a study and research report released by Pew Research in 2008 that looked at and projected the population growth of the United States way into 2050. It considered the 2005 population at the time. And at the time, white people in 2005 had made up 67% of the population. The projection to 2050 is that white people are going to lose population growth and they're going to drop off. As a matter of fact, by 2050, they will become 47% of the population. And that is concerning to a lot of white people, which is why you're seeing a lot of the rhetoric that you're seeing in the United States because of this. Hispanics, Asians, and African descendants will be descendants of African immigrants will be that will primarily make up the population growth of the United States in 2050. Hispanics are going to grow from 17% of the population, which is what the census records them as, the 2020 census, all the way into 29% of the population. They will increase to 29% of the population by 2050. I think that's going to be more. Asians are currently 6% of the population. They were 5% of the population in 2005 when the report looked at the population back in 2005. They also are projected to grow. Asians are projected to grow to 9% by 2050. Children of African descent, mostly primarily Nigerians, are going to also make up that. So when you look at the immigrant makeup of the United States by 2050, it's going to be largely 82% of the population are going to be immigrant based. So that is the makeup of the United States. This is where Nigerians and the descendants of Nigerians that are in the diaspora, especially in the United States, are going to really expand Afrobeat into the future and really maintain the relevancy of Afrobeat way into the 50s, the 2050s and 2060s and 2070 era. So that's population. So now let's talk about the children of the African descent, of African origin, the ones that are really going to have a huge impact. So my second point on this would be the Gen Alphas and the Gen Betas. These are the children of African immigrant as well as others that are really going to help cement and promote Afrobeat way into the 2050s and 2060s and also into the future. So the Gen Alphas are those that were born in 2010 all the way to 2024. Those are your Gen Alphas. And then your Gen Betas are those that will be born in 2025 all the way to 2039. Those are your Gen Betas. Now, when studies looked at this particular generation, these generations are called Gen Alphas. They are called the materialistic generation. They are going to be heavily technologically savvy. They are also going to primarily promote other cultures and really adopt many other cultures. So we're seeing a little bit of that from Gen Zs who are currently right now promoting Afrobeat all over the world. So these are the ones you're seeing on TikTok, really promoting Afrobeat all over the world. So we're going to see Gen Alphas really take the baton from Gen Zs and really promote other culture. They're going to adopt cultures that are beyond the one they were born into. They're going to push back against discrimination. They're going to push back against, nationalism. They're going to push back against racism and all of that. So these particular generation is going to really be pivotal in the expansion and the dominance of Afrobeat all the way into the metaverse. These are the ones that are going to introduce Afrobeat into the metaverse. So we're going to move from the social media platform that we're currently in right now into a third dimension of social media interaction, which will be in the metaverse. So Afrobeat, being a dominant music genre, really will have a representation during that period of time, and primarily from this generation, Gen Alpha, as well as Gen Beta. Lastly, on this generation is also known to be, is also considered to be and going to be one of the largest ever. As a matter of fact, by 2024, it would have been reported that there would be about 2 billion Gen Alphas that will have been born by 2024. So they're going to play a major role based on their characteristics, based on what their beliefs system will be, based on their ideology, based on the adoption of many culture, and Afrobeat and Nigerian culture being a culture. They're going to expand that. So that's going to be another huge aspect of Afrobeat's dominance in the world. Now, lastly on that will be Nollywood. Nollywood is today considered as Africa's fastest growing media and entertainment industry. As a matter of fact, when the United States Trade Administration released PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers projection on Nollywood, PricewaterhouseCoopers projected Nollywood annual growth rate at 8.3% and a compound annual growth rate of 19.3% from 2018 all the way to 2023. So we are in 2022 right now. We have to wait till the first quarter of 2024 to see if Nollywood surpasses that projection that PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the largest accounting firm out there, has really projected for Nollywood. I believe they will surpass it because right now annually Nollywood is surpassing the 8.3 projection that they have currently put in place for them. So this is a huge aspect for not only black movie industry, which they really, prior to Nollywood, there really was not. So the black race really did not have a movie industry that represented the black race. There was one for the white race, Hollywood. You can arguably say Hollywood was for white people. There was one for Asia. You can say Nollywood was, a huge dominance. And then later on followed by cinema of China that really sort of represented that race. But there really wasn't any. So Nollywood really is a representation. It's really going to stand in the gap and really represent not just Nigerian culture, but there's also a African and black movie culture to really propel and tell the story of black people, tell the story of Africa, and tell the story of, Afrobeat from a different standpoint. So Nollywood will, into the future, we see Nollywood really kind of incorporating, Afrobeat soundtrack in its music, sort of what we're seeing today with Hollywood. For example, Black Panther, which is set to be released on November 11th, has the representation of Afrobeat artists, the likes of Burna Boy, Thames with No Woman No Cry, CK, Fireboy DML are all represented in the Black Panther 2 soundtrack. And that's for Hollywood. So you can imagine Nollywood, as Nollywood is expanding, and while Nollywood is going to become a major player in the movie and entertainment, is really going to adopt and really incorporate a lot of Afrobeat sounds and soundtracks in its movies. Now, Nollywood today, the problem with Nollywood right now is that the quality of movies that Nollywood produce isn't really a tier 1 level production. As a matter of fact, Nollywood really takes a playbook from Bollywood. Bollywood back in the days, for many of you that are old enough to know this, back in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, their movies were not as great as they are today. Bollywood was considered to be at one point the second largest movie industry, right? After Hollywood, but they've since lost that place because Nollywood is taking that place. But when you look at the playbook of Nollywood right now, it is following the same playbook of Bollywood, who back then really had a mass consumption strategy. So when you have a mass consumption strategy, you're going to sacrifice quality. So when you look at Bollywood back in the days and the movie production that Bollywood was producing, and I call the 60s, 70s era for Bollywood to be the golden years. This is where you have the likes of Amitabh Bachchan, Zinat Aman, Emma Malini, Dharmendra, Jitendra, Vinod Khanna. These are the people that really gave Bollywood a huge presence in the stage back in the days. Even while their movies were poorly produced, nonetheless, the theme and the story behind those movies were such that kept you tuned in and really propelled Bollywood to a center stage. Since then, it has moved from that type of production to a tier 1 production. And with that, they've really lost their popularity. So Bollywood is not as popular as it was back in the golden era. So Nollywood is following the same playbook. So their strategy is mass production, which is why they're sacrificing quality. The quality hasn't been great, but they're going to move into a tier 1 production, just like Bollywood moved into a tier 1 production. And this is going to largely due to the artists. The Afrobeat artists are going to demand that, because a lot of the Afrobeat artists who are mainstream right now and are going to always be mainstream are going to demand that if their songs are going to be used in soundtracks for Nollywood, then the quality needs to be at a tier 1 level. So that's going to really force Nollywood to improve its production. So that's going to be one of the aspects of that. The Western consumers are also going to demand that, as Nollywood is making its way into the Western world and as it is expanding into the Western world. Those consumers are going to expect a level of quality from Nollywood, which is also going to move it from the type of quality it is right now into a tier 1 level production, which is right there with Hollywood, Cinema of China, Bollywood, and the rest of them. So we're going to see Nollywood really expand and become a formidable movie entertainment industry that really represents not just Africa, Nigerians, and the black race. So these factors are what I believe will contribute to the expansion of Afrobeat way into the 2050s, 2060s, 2070, and even beyond. And I said it earlier on the beginning that I believe that Afrobeat is going to outperform and outlast a lot of the other music genres that preceded it. So when you think of hip hop really had a 49 to 50 year run, starting from 1973 all the way into 2022. Hip hop is still relevant. It has moved from the golden years. We're not in the golden years of hip hop anymore, but it's still nonetheless relevant. But hip hop has really has really lasted for about 49 and all the way into 50 plus years in terms of its presence in our music genre. Afrobeat is going to outlast that. When you look at reggae started back in the 1950s, 1960s, and primarily because of one man, Bob Marley, who really sort of took the Jamaican culture and really exported it out. So reggae really has had a 70-year run, and we're no longer, reggae isn't as relevant as it used to be, but nonetheless, reggae is still around. But the golden years of reggae was like 30 years ago. So Afrobeat is going to surpass that. And when you think of High Life, which had its presence back in 1920s and really kind of faded out back in 1960, had like a 40-year run, these music genres did not have a lot of the factors that I mentioned earlier on working for them. Has nothing. Doesn't say anything bad about this music genre. It just says where we've evolved to. So the presence of social media didn't really exist for a lot of these other music genre as it exists today for Afrobeat. Obviously, Nollywood didn't really exist back in the days for these music genres. It exists today and is also a huge phenomenon that really would help to catapult Afrobeat, as well as the generations that are coming up who are mostly going to adopt technology, metaverse, augmented reality and all of that, and really use that to the advantage. So these are the things that I believe is going to keep Afrobeat as top of mind and give it a longer life cycle than many of the other music genre. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the prospect and what Afrobeat has and is going to do in the future. I'm excited about what Nigerians and the Nigerian culture, what that is going to do into the future, and how many people are really going to adopt and be much more familiar with Nigerians as well as their culture and their music. So thank you all for watching. Those are my few points. Let me know what your thoughts are with all these points that I made. Please make sure you like this video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and until then, I'll see you next
Varje gång jag bak på dig, jag tänker vilket kap jag har gjort. Jag skulle gå tillbaka till tid, göra om allt igen.